Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Roshan's Cake and Bake. I'm the Roshan in Roshan's Cake and Bake. So I'm going to do a very simple choux pastry for you, which is a light French pastry. It can actually be sweet or savory, but since Roshan likes sweet, we're going to do a sweet version of choux pastry. So let's go through the basic ingredients of choux pastry. I use butter. Here I have 250 grams of butter. I've got 500 ml of water. I'm very strict though that you need to use a jug for liquid measure. In the bowl I have 2 cups of sifted flour, cake flour, and I have 5 eggs, jumbo eggs, because I only bake with jumbo eggs. So let's get started. How do you go about this? Well, I like to cut the butter up into little blocks so it makes it easier to melt. You see, the butter will take longer to melt than it will take for the water to boil. I'm going to put this on a very low heat because I'm using a very thin saucepan as well. I'm going to add the 2 cups of water to the saucepan now. Slowly add that, and then we're going to wait until this comes to a boil. I'm going to turn it up a little bit so that the butter can melt a little faster for us. You know that butter and water don't mix. So in the basics of the choux pastry is we want the butter and the water to mix, and that's only going to happen at boiling point. You can actually do this with oil or margarine. I personally prefer real butter as it will give it a more fragrant flavor, even though there's very little flavor to choux pastry, but you can actually taste the butter in it. I no longer add the salt to this mixture because I don't find it to be necessary. There is sufficient salt in the salted butter, which adds to it all. So this is going to come to a boil, and once it does, we're going to add the flour. Now, when adding the flour, we want to be careful to not cause any lumps. You know, that can be a rather nasty experience. So it is called, when you add the flour, and we're going to then ensure that every flour particle is covered with this butter and water mixture, that's called creating a roux. And that will prevent any lumps from forming because of the particles each being coated with this mixture. It is starting to melt now, and very soon the water will come up to a boil. So we have now got the butter melted completely, and we just want this water to come to a boil. You can see that it's now mixing, but that's probably just because I've stirred it. As soon as the water boils, it'll actually be a mixture where they have mixed through the butter and water. So let's add this flour now. You can see the bubbles. So I'm going to add the flour, going to shake it all in there. Don't leave anything behind in the bowl. I'm going to stir that very well to coat the particles of flour until a ball is formed. I'm going to reduce the heat at the same time. We don't want to lose too much of the steam because the water is the main raising agent of this product. We will add the eggs as well, which will form the structure, but the water is what's going to cause it to rise because the steam will build up in the center of it. So now you can see we've formed a ball. I'm going to turn the stove off now. I'm going to stir it through while it's still in the saucepan because all that heat is in there. You've also actually cooked the starch a little bit. And now we're going to transfer that to a bowl so that it can cool down. You need to cool this down for at least half an hour to 45 minutes to ensure that you do not cause the eggs to curdle. So we are now going to add the eggs one at a time. I'm going to tell you a little secret that every YouTube clip that you will Google on how to make choux pastry will tell you to add 1 egg at a time. So to humor you, I will do this. However, I never ever add one egg at a time because I just don't have that kind of time at my disposal. So I'll crack one egg at a time. That's going to make you all happy. But I'm going to cheat. And that's just because, you see, when you are the Roshan in Roshan's Cake and Bake, you don't have time on hand to do one egg at a time. Really, who still does that in this day and age? So once we've mixed all this through and we've gotten rid of all the lumps, we want this to be a nice pipeable consistency. As you can see right now, it's not nice and smooth. It's very necessary that this be a smooth batter once we're done. So you'd assume, because I said pastry, that it's a dough, but actually it's a batter because of the consistency. Because it's a dropping consistency, it's not stiff and rollable with a rolling pin, for example. So we're going to clean that off. We're going to take some non-stick spray and spray a baking tray. What I've done for you is I have 2 piping bags ready. I've got one to do a nice fluted eclair, as the one I'm going to show you here. And then I also have a round tube to make the cream puff. So let's start with some eclairs. Going to spoon some of this into the piping bag. So eclairs are traditionally long and a smooth finish. But of course, I would prefer to do things a little differently and make it my own. So here at Roshan's Cake and Bake, we're going to do smaller eclairs. And you're just going to leave them a nice distance apart as they will obviously expand. So I'll just do one row of that to show you what they're going to look like in their raw state. You can use a knife to ensure a smooth off finish, but I will just use the tip of the piping bag to do that. Now I'm going to do some cream puffs for you. And for the cream puffs, I've just used a round nozzle. You can actually just cut the tip off a piping bag and you don't need to use the nozzle, but it will give it a nicer finish if you do. So we're just going to pipe round eclairs now, or cream puffs. So that's about the size they are when they're raw. Once you fold this tray up, we'll pop this in the oven at 220 degrees Celsius for approximately 20 minutes. You'll then reduce the heat to 200 degrees for another 15 to 20 minutes, and then reduce it once again to 180 degrees until it is the desired color and texture that you want. So I'm going to finish off 2 for you. What I have here is some sweetened fresh cream. I like my cream sweetened. I think it's a little bit too bland when you don't add any icing sugar to it. So to 250 ml of cream, I'll add about 1/4 cup of sugar. You can obviously decide how you prefer, how sweet you prefer your cream to be. So we'll just pipe a little bit into the eclair, close it up. I've put my ganache in a piping bag because, well, it wouldn't quite be Roshan if I did it with a spoon or a spatula. So I'm just going to pipe the ganache onto the eclair to finish it off. And we'll do a pretty little zigzag pattern. And then you can make these either for iftar or Eid, and you can pretend that, you know, I was visiting in Joburg or Durban, or you could pretend Roshan still makes eclairs for Eid, which I definitely do not do. And then we can finish off a cream puff for you, which I think will be a nice variation if we added a little caramel. So we'll put some caramel in there, nice and decadent and sweet after a day of fasting. Pop in some cream. And we're just going to sprinkle some icing sugar on that, so it has that nice snowy look and added sweetness. So were you afraid of making choux pastry before? How simple was that? Why would you possibly stress? And you're going to have a perfectly finished choux pastry. So where will you find this recipe? Check out the cookhalal.com website, on which I have given the exact step-by-step instructions as how I've made it right here. We wish you and your family well for the rest of Ramadan. Have a beautiful, spiritually and uplifting Ramadan. May we all gain and reap the benefits of this beautiful month of sharing and caring, inshallah. With love and salams from Roshan of Roshan's Cake and Bake.